You wake slowly, as if rising through layers of quiet time rather than sleep alone. There is no sudden alarm, no sharp interruption, only a gradual awareness of weight and warmth and stillness. Your eyes remain closed for a moment longer, listening. The world around you is not silent, but it is gentle. A faint draft brushes against your face. Somewhere in the distance, a wooden beam creaks softly, as though the building itself is breathing in long, patient rhythms. The surface beneath you feels firm, almost unyielding. It is not the softness you might expect, but rather a simple mattress stuffed with straw, covered in coarse linen. The fabric carries a faint scent of earth and dryness, something natural and unrefined. You shift slightly, and the straw within the mattress rustles quietly, a soft whisper beneath your movement. It is a sound that belongs to a slower world. When you finally open your eyes, the light is dim. Pale grey morning light filters through a narrow window cut deep into thick stone walls. The window is small, more a slit than an opening, designed not for comfort, but for defense. The light that enters is thin and angled, illuminating particles of dust that drift lazily in the air. Each particle moves slowly, suspended in a quiet dance that seems almost timeless. You take a breath and notice the air itself. It is cool, slightly damp, and carries the faint smell of stone, wood, and distant smoke. It is not unpleasant, but it is different. It speaks of age, of permanence, of a place that has stood for many years and will stand for many more. You are inside a medieval castle. The realization does not arrive as a shock, but rather as a quiet understanding. There is no urgency here, no need to question immediately. Instead, you remain still, allowing your senses to adjust, to gather the details slowly. The walls around you are made of rough stone, uneven and solid, their surfaces marked by time and careful construction. They do not reflect light, but absorb it, giving the room a muted, grounded feeling. Above you, heavy wooden beams stretch across the ceiling. They are darkened with age, their surfaces worn smooth in places. They support the weight of the structure above, silent and dependable. You notice how everything in this space feels purposeful. Nothing is decorative without reason. Nothing is excessive. A faint sound reaches you from somewhere beyond the room. It is distant but distinct. Footsteps, slow and steady. Perhaps a servant moving through a corridor or a guard beginning his watch. The sound echoes slightly, carried through stone passageways that twist and turn beyond your sight. It reminds you that you are not alone here, though for now your space remains quiet. You sit up gradually, feeling the coolness of the air more clearly against your skin. The garments you wear are simple, loose, made of natural fibers that feel slightly rough but breathable. They hang comfortably, designed more for function than for form. As you move, the fabric shifts with a soft rustle, another small sound that blends into the calm atmosphere of the room. Your feet touch the floor, and you feel the cold stone beneath them. It is firm and grounding, a contrast to the straw mattress. The temperature travels upward, steady and real, reminding you of the solidity of this place. You pause for a moment, simply feeling it. There is no rush to stand, no pressing task calling you forward. Instead, you take in the room more fully. It is modest in size, a bed, a wooden stool, a small chest placed near the wall. Perhaps it holds personal belongings, though you do not yet feel the need to open it. The simplicity of the space is not empty, but complete. It contains only what is necessary, and nothing more. The window draws your attention again. You rise slowly and step toward it, each movement unhurried. As you approach, the light grows slightly stronger, outlining the edges of the stone. When you reach the opening, you place your hand against the wall beside it. The stone is cool and textured, its surface uneven beneath your fingers. You look out. The view is narrow, framed tightly by the thickness of the wall, but it reveals enough. Below, a courtyard begins to stir with early activity. The shapes are small from this height, but you can see movement. A figure crosses the open space, carrying something. Another stands near a wooden structure, perhaps preparing tools or tending to a morning task. The sky above is pale, still holding the softness of dawn. There are no bright colors yet, only gentle shades of grey and faint blue. The day is beginning slowly, just as you are. You notice the sounds more clearly now, the distant murmur of voices, the faint clatter of wood against stone. Somewhere, the soft call of an animal echoes briefly and fades. Each sound is spaced apart, unhurried, allowing the silence between them to remain just as present. It is a different rhythm of life. You remain at the window for a while, watching without needing to interpret or analyze. The scene below unfolds naturally, without urgency or spectacle. People move with purpose, but not haste. Their actions are part of a routine that repeats day after day, shaped by necessity and tradition. Eventually, you step back from the window and turn toward the room again. There is a sense of stillness here that feels almost protective. The thick walls keep out the noise of the outside world, creating a space where time moves more slowly. Even your thoughts seem to follow this pace, becoming quieter, more measured. You take a few steps across the room, noticing how your footsteps echo softly against the stone. The sound is gentle, but it lingers just long enough to remind you of the space around you. You are aware of every movement, every small shift in sound and sensation. There is a doorway set into the wall, leading out into what you assume is a corridor. The door itself is made of heavy wood, reinforced with iron bands. It stands slightly ajar, as if left that way intentionally. A faint line of light extends from the opening, hinting at the space beyond. You do not rush toward it. Instead, you pause once more, taking a final moment to absorb the quiet of this room. It feels like the beginning of something, though not in an urgent or dramatic way, more like the start of a long, steady day that will unfold gradually, revealing its details one by one. There is a certain comfort in not knowing everything at once. You place your hand on the wooden door and push it gently. It opens with a soft creak, the sound low and unintrusive. Beyond it, a narrow corridor stretches in both directions, lit by small openings and the occasional flicker of torchlight. The air here feels slightly cooler, moving more freely through the passage. You step out slowly, your bare feet meeting the stone floor once again. The corridor carries the same quiet presence as the room, but with a subtle sense of connection to the rest of the castle. This is a place of movement, of passage, where footsteps come and go throughout the day. For a moment, you stand there simply listening. A distant voice, the faint clang of metal, the soft brushing sound of fabric as someone passes far away. None of it is overwhelming. All of it blends into a calm, continuous background. You begin to walk. Each step is measured, unhurried, as if there is no destination that requires speed. The walls beside you are thick and solid, their surfaces cool to the touch. Small alcoves appear occasionally, some empty, others holding simple objects. a wooden bucket, a folded cloth, small signs of daily life, placed without ceremony. As you move forward, the light shifts subtly, growing slightly brighter in certain areas, where openings allow more of the morning sky to enter. The castle is not uniformly lit, but rather a balance of shadow and soft illumination. It creates a gentle contrast that guides your movement without demanding attention. You pass a doorway, where a faint glow suggests a fire burning somewhere within. The smell of smoke drifts lightly into the corridor, warm and familiar. It mixes with the scent of stone and wood, creating an atmosphere that feels grounded and real. The further you walk, the more the castle begins to reveal itself, not all at once, but in quiet fragments. A turn in the corridor, a slight change in sound, a distant figure appearing briefly before disappearing again. It is a place that does not rush to show itself. And so you continue, moving gently through this ancient space, allowing each moment to unfold in its own time. The day has only just begun, and already it carries a sense of calm continuity, as if countless mornings before this one have followed the same slow and steady rhythm. There is no need to hurry. There is only the quiet experience of being here, of waking, of beginning. As you continue along the corridor, the castle begins to reveal more of its physical presence, not through grand displays, but through quiet, steady impressions. The walls remain close, their stone surfaces uneven, yet carefully placed, each block fitted with intention. You notice how the texture changes slightly as you move, some stones smoother from years of passing hands, others still rough and untouched, holding the memory of their shaping. The corridor itself is narrow, designed with purpose rather than comfort. It bends gently, never quite allowing a straight, uninterrupted view. This creates a sense of unfolding space, where each turn brings a new angle, a new fragment of the castle's inner structure. The ceiling above is low, supported by thick wooden beams that cross overhead at regular intervals. They feel strong, grounded, as if they have carried the weight of centuries without complaint. Light enters sparingly. Small windows, similar to the one in your room, are placed at intervals along the wall. Each one offers a thin stream of daylight that falls across the stone floor in soft, pale shapes. These patches of light shift slowly as the morning advances, marking time in a quiet, almost unnoticed way. Between them, the corridor rests in shadow, not dark, but dim and calm. Your footsteps echo gently as you walk, a soft rhythm that blends with the distant sounds of the castle waking. Occasionally, the floor beneath you changes slightly, from smoother stone to more uneven sections. Worn by years of movement, you adjust your pace naturally, stepping with care, though there is no urgency to move quickly. After a short while, the corridor opens into a wider space. It is not a grand hall, but rather a junction where several passageways meet. Here, the ceiling rises slightly, giving the air a more open feeling. A wooden bench rests against one wall, simple and sturdy. It looks well used, though no one occupies it at this moment. Nearby, a narrow staircase curves upward, its steps carved directly into the stone, worn smooth at the center from countless footsteps. You pause here, allowing your eyes to explore. To one side, another corridor stretches into shadow. To the other, a wider opening leads toward a space that feels brighter, more open. You sense that this direction may lead toward the heart of the castle, where daily life gathers and moves more freely. You choose that path. As you move forward, the air shifts slightly. It feels less enclosed, carrying with it faint traces of outdoor freshness. The corridor widens gradually, and the light grows stronger. Soon, you step through an archway and into a courtyard. The transition is gentle but noticeable. The space opens above you, revealing the pale morning sky. The walls of the castle rise high on all sides, enclosing the courtyard like a protective shell. Their stone surfaces are more exposed here, catching the early light and reflecting it softly across the open ground. The courtyard itself is made of packed earth and stone, uneven but well-trodden. You take a slow step forward. The air feels different here, cooler yet lighter. It moves more freely, carrying subtle sounds and scents. You can hear the quiet activity of the castle more clearly now. A few figures move across the courtyard, each engaged in simple, purposeful tasks. One carries a wooden bucket. Another adjusts a bundle of materials near a wall. Their movements are calm, steady, and familiar, as if repeated countless times before. There is no rush in their actions. You notice the structures within the courtyard. A well stands near the center, its stone edge worn smooth by use. A wooden frame supports a pulley and rope, the bucket resting quietly beside it. Nearby, a small covered area shelters tools and supplies, organized in a practical, unadorned way. Along one side of the courtyard, a row of doorways leads into different parts of the castle. Each door is made of thick wood, reinforced with iron, similar to the one you passed earlier. Some stand open, revealing glimpses of dim interior spaces, while others remain closed, holding their quiet secrets. Above, narrow walkways run along the inner walls of the castle. You can see their edges lined with simple stone barriers. These paths connect different sections of the structure, allowing movement along the upper levels. A guard passes slowly along one of these walkways, his presence steady and watchful, though not imposing. The entire space feels balanced. Nothing stands out as overly grand or decorative. Instead, everything serves a purpose. The design of the castle is practical, shaped by the needs of protection, daily living, and the passage of time. Even in its simplicity, there is a quiet strength in how it holds together. You walk slowly along the edge of the courtyard, your steps soft against the ground. As you move, you notice small details that might otherwise be overlooked. The way water has darkened certain stones near the well. The faint marks left by carts or heavy loads dragged across the surface. The subtle variations in color where materials have aged differently over time. Each detail tells a quiet story. You pass near one of the open doorways and glance inside. The interior is dim, lit only by a small opening or perhaps a distant flame. You can make out the shape of a room used for storage, with wooden shelves holding various items. Clay pots, bundles of cloth, simple tools. Everything arranged with care, though without decoration. You continue on, allowing your path to guide you naturally. At the far side of the courtyard, another archway leads into a larger interior space. As you approach, you feel a slight shift in temperature again, the warmth of enclosed air meeting the coolness of the open courtyard. You step inside. This room is larger than the others you have seen so far. The ceiling rises higher, supported by thick wooden beams that stretch across the width of the space. The walls are still stone, but here they are partially covered with hanging fabrics, adding a small sense of warmth and texture. The light enters through a combination of narrow windows and a few carefully placed openings, creating a soft, uneven illumination. This may be a gathering hall, or perhaps a place where certain activities take place throughout the day. Long wooden tables are arranged across the room, their surfaces worn but sturdy. Benches accompany them, simple in design, positioned close together. At one end of the room, a large hearth stands against the wall. It is not fully active yet, but faint embers glow within, hinting at the fire that will soon be tended. The smell here is different. There is a trace of smoke mixed with the faint scent of wood and something else, perhaps the remnants of food prepared earlier. It is subtle, not overpowering, but it adds another layer to the atmosphere of the space. You walk slowly between the tables, your hand brushing lightly against the surface of one. The wood feels smooth in places, worn by years of use. Small marks and imperfections remain, evidence of countless meals, conversations, and quiet moments shared here. The room is not empty. A few individuals move quietly, preparing for the day ahead. One arranges items on a table, placing them with careful attention. Another tends to the hearth, adding small pieces of wood, encouraging the embers to grow into a steady flame. Their movements are calm and practiced, part of a routine that unfolds each morning without the need for instruction. You do not interrupt. Instead, you observe. There is a sense of quiet coordination in their actions, even without words. Each person seems to understand their role, their place within the rhythm of the castle. It is not hurried, but it is steady. You move toward one of the windows, slightly larger than the others, and look out again. From this angle, you can see a different part of the castle grounds. Beyond the walls, the land stretches outward in gentle slopes. The details are distant, softened by the morning light, but you can sense the presence of fields, perhaps forest beyond. The castle stands as a contained world within a larger one. You turn back into the room, taking another slow breath. Everything here feels connected. The corridors, the courtyard, the rooms, each part flowing into the next with quiet purpose. There is no excess, no unnecessary complexity. The structure is shaped by need, by function, and by time itself. You begin to understand the castle not as a single space, but as a living system. Each area supports another. Each passage leads somewhere meaningful. Even the smallest details contribute to the whole. And as you stand there, in the soft light of the early morning, you realize that this place is not meant to be explored quickly. It is meant to be experienced slowly, one step at a time, one quiet moment after another. The day continues to unfold, and with it, the castle reveals itself, not all at once, but in gentle layers that invite you to move, to observe, and simply to be present within its enduring walls. As you remain within the quiet rhythm of the castle, your awareness begins to shift from the stone and structure to the people who inhabit it. At first, they appear as distant figures, moving through corridors and across the courtyard with steady purpose. But gradually, as you linger and observe, their presence becomes clearer, more defined, like shapes emerging from a soft morning mist. They do not move randomly. Each person follows a pattern, a role shaped by the needs of the castle and the traditions of the time. There is a quiet order to it all, something understood without the need for explanation. You begin to notice the differences between them, not only in what they do, but in how they carry themselves, how they dress, and how they interact with one another. Near the long wooden tables, a servant continues arranging simple items with careful attention. Their clothing is plain, made of coarse fabric, designed for durability rather than appearance. The colors are muted, earth-toned, blending softly with the surroundings. Their movements are efficient, yet unhurried, as if they have performed these same actions countless times before. You watch as they pause briefly, adjusting the placement of a cup, then stepping back to observe their work. There is a quiet satisfaction in the gesture, though no one is there to acknowledge it. It is not done for praise, but because it is part of their responsibility, a small contribution to the smooth running of the day. Across the room, another figure tends to the hearth. This person moves with a slightly different rhythm, slower, more deliberate. They kneel beside the fire, adding pieces of wood, then gently shifting them to encourage the flame. The light flickers softly, reflecting in their focused expression. There is a calm patience in the way they work, an understanding of the fire that goes beyond simple instruction. You realize that knowledge here is often passed through repetition, through experience rather than written guidance. Each task is learned over time, refined through quiet practice. From the corridor behind you, footsteps approach. You turn slightly, noticing a guard entering the space. His presence is distinct, though not overwhelming. He wears simple armor, practical and worn, designed for protection rather than display. A belt rests at his side, holding tools of his role, though nothing is drawn or in use. His posture is upright, attentive, yet relaxed in a way that suggests familiarity with the environment. He glances briefly around the room, acknowledging the activity within without interrupting it. His gaze passes over you as well, not with suspicion, but with quiet awareness. Then he continues on, his step steady as he moves toward another part of the castle. There is no tension in his presence, only a sense of watchfulness that exists as part of the castle's daily rhythm. You begin to notice that each person carries a subtle awareness of others. They do not speak constantly, nor do they ignore one another. Instead, there is a balance, a quiet recognition that allows them to move without collision, to share space without disruption. It is a kind of silent coordination. As you step back into the corridor, you encounter more of these individuals, each contributing to the life of the castle in their own way. A young servant passes by, carrying a bundle of cloth. Their steps are careful, their focus directed downward, ensuring nothing is dropped. They move quickly, but not hurriedly, as if guided by a steady internal rhythm. Further along, an older figure walks with measured pace, perhaps overseeing certain tasks. Their clothing is slightly more refined, though still simple. They pause occasionally, observing, adjusting, offering a quiet word or gesture before continuing on. Their role seems to exist between action and guidance, maintaining the flow of activity without drawing attention to themselves. The castle is not filled with loud instructions or constant direction. Instead, it operates through an understanding built over time. You move toward the courtyard again, drawn by the soft light and open space. As you step outside, the activity there has grown slightly more visible, though it remains calm. A few more individuals are present now, each engaged in their tasks. One draws water from the well, the rope moving slowly through the pulley with a gentle creak. Another arranges tools near the wall, preparing for work that will unfold later in the day. Near the edge of the courtyard, you notice a figure dressed differently from the others. Their clothing is finer, made of smoother fabric, with subtle details that set them apart. The colors are richer, though still not overly bright. They stand with a certain stillness, observing the activity around them. Their posture is composed, their movements minimal but deliberate. This is likely a noble. Their presence does not interrupt the rhythm of the courtyard, but it changes it slightly. Those nearby continue their work, yet there is a subtle awareness of this figure, a quiet acknowledgement that does not require direct interaction. The noble watches for a moment, then turns slowly, moving toward one of the doorways with calm, unhurried steps. You sense that their role is less about constant action and more about oversight, decision, and presence. They are part of the structure of the castle, just as much as the walls themselves. Above, along the narrow walkway, another guard passes. His pace is steady, his gaze directed outward beyond the walls, scanning the distant land. From time to time, he glances inward, maintaining awareness of both the outside world and the life within the castle. His role bridges two spaces, the protected interior and the uncertain exterior. You stand quietly, observing the connections between these roles. Servants move with purpose, maintaining the daily needs of the castle. Guards maintain watch, ensuring safety and order. Nobles observe and guide, their presence shaping decisions that ripple through the structure. Each role is distinct, yet none exists entirely alone. They form a quiet system. No single action feels isolated. Everything contributes to the whole. As you walk slowly across the courtyard, you pass near a small group of servants speaking in low voices. Their conversation is soft, almost blending into the background. You catch only fragments, simple exchanges about tasks, about the day ahead. There is no urgency in their tone, only familiarity. They share a brief moment of connection, then return to their work. It is not a place of constant conversation, but neither is it silent. The balance remains. You begin to notice how little is wasted here, not only in objects, but in movement and speech. Each action has a purpose. Each word is measured. Even rest, when it comes, feels intentional rather than idle. You find yourself drawn once more toward the interior, following a path that leads into another corridor. As you walk, a servant carrying a wooden tray approaches from the opposite direction. They step slightly to the side, allowing space for you to pass. There is no spoken exchange, only a small nod, a quiet acknowledgement. Then they continue on. The simplicity of the interaction feels complete. You continue deeper into the castle, the sounds of the courtyard fading behind you. In their place, the softer echoes of indoor movement return. Footsteps, the faint creak of doors, the distant murmur of voices. You realize that the castle is not defined by any single space or group of people. It is defined by the flow between them. The people within it are not separate from the structure, but part of it, just as the beams support the ceiling and the walls enclose the rooms. Their roles shape the rhythm of the day, creating a steady, continuous motion that carries the castle forward. And as you move through this quiet world, observing without needing to intervene, you begin to feel that same rhythm within yourself. Slow, steady, unhurried. The day is still young, and already the life of the castle unfolds around you, not in grand gestures, but in small, consistent movements that build into something enduring. You continue walking, allowing the presence of these people to guide your understanding, knowing that there is still much to see and much to quietly absorb. The morning within the castle unfolds slowly, not with a single beginning, but with many small awakenings happening at once. You begin to notice how the rhythm of the day is not marked by loud signals or clear announcements, but by subtle shifts in movement, sound, and light. Each part of the castle stirs in its own time, yet everything gradually aligns into a shared flow. As you walk along a quieter passage, the faint glow of morning strengthens. The light entering through narrow windows becomes a little clearer, losing its grey softness and taking on a pale warmth. It does not flood the space, but gently lifts the shadows, revealing more of the stone textures and wooden details around you. You pass by a partially open doorway and pause for a moment. Inside, a small room holds two figures just beginning their day. One sits on the edge of a low bed, adjusting simple garments, while the other carefully folds a piece of cloth. Their movements are slow, unhurried, as if the act of waking is something to be completed with patience rather than speed. There is no conversation, only the soft sound of fabric shifting and the quiet presence of shared space. You move on without disturbing them, continuing down the corridor. Further along, you begin to hear the faint but steady rhythm of preparation, a wooden bucket being set down, the brushing of a broom across stone, the muted clink of objects being arranged. These sounds are not loud, but they form a gentle pattern, repeating in different parts of the castle like a distant echo of routine. You follow the sound of sweeping and soon find yourself near a wider section of the corridor where a servant works carefully along the floor. They move the broom in slow, deliberate strokes, gathering dust and small debris into a neat line. Their focus is steady, their pace consistent. There is no sense of rushing to finish, only the quiet continuation of a task that must be done each day. The act itself feels almost meditative. You watch for a moment, noticing how each movement is repeated with slight variation, how the broom shifts angle, how the servant pauses occasionally to adjust their grip. The process is simple, yet it carries a sense of completeness. Nearby, another figure carries a small jug of water, moving toward one of the rooms. The liquid inside shifts gently with each step, catching faint light as it moves. Water, you realize, is part of the morning rhythm as well. It must be drawn, carried, and used with care. Nothing here arrives without effort. You continue walking, and the corridor leads you once more toward the larger hall you saw earlier. Inside, the space has changed subtly. The hearth now burns more steadily, its flame no longer just a faint glow, but a soft, consistent fire. The warmth spreads gently through the room, touching the air without overwhelming it. A figure stands nearby, adjusting the wood, ensuring the flame remains stable. The crackling sound is quiet, almost comforting, adding another layer to the morning's atmosphere. At the long tables, a few individuals begin to gather. They do not sit immediately, but move around the space, preparing for what will come next. Simple items are placed on the table: wooden cups, small portions of food, perhaps bread or something equally plain. The arrangement is careful, though not decorative. Everything is placed with purpose, ready to be used. You step closer, observing without interrupting. One person pauses briefly, looking toward the window as if gauging the time by the position of the light. There are no clocks here, no precise measurements of minutes or hours. Instead, the day is understood through natural changes: the brightness of the sky, the warmth of the air, the familiar sequence of tasks. Time is felt rather than counted. You notice how the people here move with that understanding. They do not check, they simply know. Their actions follow a rhythm that has been repeated so often it no longer requires conscious thought. From another entrance, a guard steps into the hall, his presence calm as before. He pauses near the doorway, not to command attention, but to observe. His role in the morning is not to disrupt, but to remain aware, to ensure that everything continues as it should. There is a quiet trust in how each person performs their part. You move toward one of the benches and rest your hand lightly against its surface. The wood is cool, but not cold, holding the memory of many mornings like this one. You imagine the countless individuals who have sat here before, beginning their days in much the same way, quietly, steadily, without urgency. The room begins to fill, though never completely. People enter in small numbers, spacing themselves naturally. There is no crowd, no sudden gathering. Instead, the space grows gradually more active, like a slow tide rising. A few soft exchanges of words take place, but the voices remain low, blending into the background, rather than rising above it. You sit for a moment, allowing yourself to become part of the stillness. The warmth of the fire, the soft movement of people, the muted light from the windows, all of it combines into a calm, steady presence. There is nothing demanding your attention, nothing pulling you in different directions. You are simply here, within the quiet unfolding of the morning. After some time, you rise again and step back into the corridor. The castle continues its gentle awakening. More footsteps now, though still measured. More doors opening, more small tasks beginning. The rhythm builds, but never becomes overwhelming. It remains balanced, controlled, almost predictable in its calm progression. You find your way back toward the courtyard. Outside, the light has grown stronger. The sky is no longer grey, but softly blue, with the early hint of daylight settling across the stone walls. The courtyard itself is more active now, though still far from busy. A few additional figures move through the space, carrying tools, adjusting materials, preparing for the work that will follow later in the day. Near the well, someone draws water again, the rope moving with a familiar creak. The bucket rises slowly, dripping as it emerges. Each drop falls back into the well with a soft, repeating sound. The action is steady, almost rhythmic, like a quiet heartbeat within the courtyard. You walk slowly across the open space, feeling the ground beneath your feet, noticing how the light now touches more of the surfaces around you. The walls seem slightly brighter, the shadows less deep. The castle is no longer in the quiet edge of dawn, but in the early stages of day. And yet, the calm remains. Nothing here rushes forward. Nothing demands urgency. The morning continues to unfold as it always has, through small actions repeated with care, carried out by people who understand their place within this steady, enduring rhythm. You pause once more, taking in the scene. The castle, with its stone walls and wooden beams, holds this rhythm within it. The people, with their quiet movements and simple routines, bring it to life. Together, they create a morning that is not defined by speed or noise, but by consistency and presence. You feel yourself settling into that same pace, breathing more slowly, moving more gently, allowing each moment to pass without resistance. The day is still only beginning, and already it carries a sense of quiet continuity, as if every morning before this one has led naturally into this exact moment. and every moment that follows will do the same. As the morning settles into a steady rhythm, your attention begins to drift toward one of the most essential parts of life within the castle: the quiet, continuous work of preparing food. It does not announce itself loudly, yet its presence can be felt in subtle ways. A shift in scent, a change in movement, the faint gathering of people in spaces where warmth and nourishment begin to take form. You follow this quiet signal back toward the large hall. Inside, the hearth now burns with a stronger, more stable flame. The fire has grown beyond its early embers, filling the space with a gentle warmth that reaches outward in soft waves. The light it casts is not harsh, but alive, flickering gently across the stone walls and wooden beams above. It creates a sense of calm focus, drawing attention without demanding it. Near the hearth, several individuals move with quiet coordination. Their actions are steady, practiced, and purposeful. One kneels beside the fire, adjusting the position of a simple iron pot suspended above the flames. The movement is slow, deliberate, as if guided by memory rather than instruction. Another stands nearby, carefully placing pieces of wood into the fire, ensuring that the heat remains even and controlled. There is no rush in their work. Each motion flows naturally into the next. You step a little closer, noticing the subtle details, the way hands move with familiarity over worn surfaces, the quiet exchange of tools without the need for words. A wooden spoon passed gently from one person to another, a small nod of acknowledgement. Everything happens with a quiet understanding that seems to exist beneath the surface. On one of the long tables, simple ingredients are laid out. There is bread, coarse and dense, its surface slightly uneven, bearing the marks of its baking. Nearby, small portions of preserved food are arranged carefully. Nothing appears excessive. Nothing is wasted. Each item is prepared and placed with the awareness that it must sustain not just one moment, but the day ahead. You notice how the preparation of food here is not separate from the rest of life, but woven into it. It is part of the rhythm. A figure begins to slice the bread, the blade moving slowly through the firm crust. The sound is soft but distinct, a gentle repetition that blends into the background of the room. Each slice is measured not by exact size, but by an intuitive sense of balance. Enough for each person, enough to last. Nearby, another person pours liquid from a jug into wooden cups. The movement is careful, steady, ensuring nothing spills. The liquid catches the light briefly as it flows, then settles quietly into each cup. There is no haste, only attention. You realize that even the smallest actions here carry weight. Nothing is taken for granted. The food itself is simple, yet it holds importance beyond its appearance. It represents effort, time, and the quiet cooperation of many unseen steps. The gathering of ingredients, the tending of fire, the preparation carried out each morning without fail. As you stand there, the scent of the room begins to deepen. It is subtle, but present. A warmth that comes not just from the fire, but from the food itself. It is not rich or overwhelming, but steady and grounding. It fills the space gently, becoming part of the atmosphere rather than standing apart from it. People begin to take their places at the tables. They do so gradually, without any clear signal. One sits, then another. Some remain standing a moment longer, finishing a small task before joining. The movement is calm, uncoordinated in appearance, yet somehow balanced. You take a seat as well, allowing yourself to be part of the moment. The bench beneath you is firm, the table solid. In front of you, a simple portion of food is placed, along with a cup. There is no ceremony, no formal announcement. The meal begins quietly, almost without notice. The first bite is slow. The bread is dense, its texture firm but satisfying. It requires a moment of attention, a gentle effort to break and chew. There is something grounding in its simplicity. It does not overwhelm the senses, but invites them to settle. Around you, others eat in much the same way. There is little conversation, only the soft sounds of movement, the shifting of benches, the quiet placement of cups. Occasionally, a few words are exchanged, but they remain low, respectful of the shared space. It is not a silent meal, but a calm one. You begin to notice how the act of eating here is not rushed. There is no sense of finishing quickly or moving on. Instead, each moment is allowed to unfold at its own pace. Each bite taken with awareness, each movement carried out with care. The fire continues to burn steadily, its warmth spreading through the room. The light it casts shifts gently as the flames move, creating a soft, ever-changing pattern on the walls. It feels almost like a presence, steady and reliable, anchoring the space. As the meal continues, a few individuals rise quietly once they have finished. They do not leave abruptly, but take a moment to gather what they have used. Cups are returned. Small remnants are cleared. Everything is handled with the same care as it was prepared. Nothing is left in disorder. The cycle of preparation and completion feels complete. You remain seated for a while longer, observing the slow transition. The room does not empty suddenly. Instead, it gradually returns to a quieter state. The tables remain, the hearth continues to burn, but the intensity of activity softens once again. You begin to understand that food here is not just about nourishment. It is about continuity. Each meal marks a point in the day, a quiet pause within the larger rhythm. It brings people together, not through conversation or ceremony, but through shared presence, through the simple act of sitting, eating, and existing within the same space. You stand slowly, feeling the warmth of the room linger as you step away from the table. The castle continues its steady motion beyond this moment. Tasks resume. Movement continues. The rhythm does not stop, but shifts gently into its next phase. As you walk back toward the corridor, you carry with you the quiet sense of completeness that the meal has provided. It was simple, unadorned, yet deeply rooted in the life of this place. And as the morning moves forward, you sense that everything else within the castle will follow this same pattern, steady, intentional, and quietly connected to all that surrounds it. As the quiet meal comes to an end, the castle does not pause for long. Instead, the rhythm of the day gently shifts, like a slow turning of unseen gears. What was once preparation now becomes action. The stillness of morning gives way to the steady movement of work, carried out across different parts of the castle with quiet consistency. You step once more into the corridor, noticing how the atmosphere has subtly changed. The air feels more active now, not rushed, but filled with a sense of direction. Footsteps pass more frequently. Doors open and close with soft, familiar sounds. The castle, fully awake, begins to move with purpose. You follow the flow of movement toward the courtyard. Outside, the light has strengthened, settling into a clear, gentle brightness. The sky above is calm, pale blue, and the high stone walls reflect the light softly across the open space. The courtyard, once quiet and nearly still, now holds a steady pattern of activity. People move in different directions, each following a path shaped by their role. Near the well, water continues to be drawn, but now with more regularity. The rope moves in a slow, repeating cycle, rising and falling with quiet persistence. A figure carries a filled bucket away, stepping carefully across the uneven ground, mindful not to spill even a small amount. Nearby, another individual organizes tools along the wall. Wooden handles are aligned neatly. Metal surfaces are checked and adjusted. Each item is placed with intention, ready for use. There is no wasted motion, no unnecessary handling. Everything is done once, and done carefully. You walk slowly along the edge of the courtyard, observing without interrupting. At one side, a pair of workers begins a task that requires quiet coordination. One holds a piece of material steady, while the other works upon it with slow, measured movements. The sound is soft, repetitive, almost rhythmic. It blends into the background, becoming part of the steady pulse of the castle's day. You notice how work here is not separated into loud moments of effort and quiet moments of rest. Instead, it flows continuously. Each task is carried out at a pace that can be sustained, not rushed. It is work designed to last, not to finish quickly. There is a patience in it, a quiet acceptance of the time required to complete each action properly. From above, along the narrow walkway, a guard continues his watch. His steps are slow and even, his gaze shifting between the land beyond the walls and the activity within. He does not interfere, but his presence is constant, a reminder that while the castle is a place of daily life, it is also a place of protection. You turn from the courtyard and follow a passage leading toward another part of the castle. The corridor here feels slightly different. It carries a faint scent of wood and something else, perhaps stored materials or recently handled tools. The space opens into a room where work continues in a quieter, more contained way. Inside, several individuals are engaged in tasks that require focus and steady hands. One sits at a wooden surface, shaping an object with careful movements. The tool in their hand moves slowly, removing small amounts at a time. Each motion is deliberate, guided by experience rather than speed. The object begins to take form gradually, its shape emerging through patience. Nearby, another figure sorts through materials, separating them into small, organized groups. The action is repetitive, but not mindless. Each item is examined briefly before being placed. There is an attention to detail that feels almost instinctive. You remain near the entrance, watching. No one looks up in surprise. No one questions your presence. The work continues as it always has, uninterrupted by observation. It is not a performance, but a continuation of routine. You begin to understand that much of the castle's life exists in these quiet, focused moments, away from the larger spaces, away from gathering and movement. Here, the work is more contained, more inward. You step back into the corridor and continue on. Further along, the sounds change slightly. A faint metallic tone echoes softly, repeating at intervals. You follow it, and it leads you to another space where a different kind of work takes place. A figure stands near a simple setup, working with metal tools. The sound you heard comes from a light, controlled strike, repeated with steady rhythm. It is not loud or forceful, but precise. Each movement is measured, each sound purposeful. The air here carries a different scent, warm, slightly sharp, shaped by the materials being used. It is not overwhelming, but distinct enough to mark the space as one of focused effort. You watch as the figure pauses, examines their work, then continues. There is no sign of impatience, only persistence. You move on once more, allowing the castle to guide your path. As you return toward the central areas, you notice how the different forms of work connect. The tools prepared in one space are used in another. The materials shaped here support tasks elsewhere. Nothing exists in isolation. Each action contributes to a larger, unseen structure of daily life. Back in the courtyard, the activity continues at its steady pace. Some individuals carry items from one place to another. Others remain at fixed positions, continuing their tasks without interruption. The movement forms a pattern not chaotic, but flowing, like a quiet current moving through the space. You find a place near the wall and pause. From here, you can see multiple paths at once. Corridors leading inward, walkways above, open space below, people moving between them, each following their own route, yet all part of the same rhythm. The castle feels alive, not through noise or urgency, but through continuity. Work is not something that begins and ends sharply here. It simply continues. You take a slow breath, feeling the calm persistence of it all. There is no pressure to hurry, no expectation to complete everything at once. Each task is given the time it needs. Each person moves at a pace that can be sustained throughout the day. It is a different understanding of effort, one that values steadiness over speed. As the hours pass quietly, the light shifts again, though almost imperceptibly. The shadows in the courtyard shorten slightly. The brightness becomes more even, settling into the fullness of the day. Yet the rhythm remains unchanged. Work continues, movement continues. The castle carries on, just as it always has, and you remain within it, moving slowly, observing, allowing yourself to follow the same gentle pace, becoming part of a day that unfolds not through urgency, but through quiet, continuous purpose. As the steady rhythm of work continues, you begin to sense something deeper beneath the visible movement of the castle. It is not something spoken aloud or clearly marked, yet it shapes every interaction, every decision, every quiet moment between individuals. It is the structure of society itself, the unspoken understanding of place, role, and expectation that guides life within these walls. You notice it first in small gestures, a servant stepping slightly aside to allow another to pass, a brief lowering of the head when a noble figure moves through a corridor, the way voices soften in certain spaces, while remaining more relaxed in others. None of it is forced. None of it is dramatic. It is simply understood. You walk slowly through a passage where several individuals move in opposite directions. Their paths cross, yet there is no confusion. Each adjusts slightly, almost instinctively, creating space without hesitation. It is not planned, but practiced. A quiet choreography shaped over time. Hierarchy exists here, but it does not shout. It settles into the rhythm of daily life. As you move further, you encounter the noble figure you noticed earlier. They walk through the corridor with a calm, measured pace. Their presence neither hurried nor heavy. Their clothing remains more refined than those around them. The fabric smoother, the details more carefully finished. Yet even so, there is no display of excess, only a subtle distinction. As they pass, others acknowledge them with small, respectful gestures. A slight pause in movement, a quiet inclination of the head. No words are exchanged, yet the meaning is clear. Respect is given, not demanded. It flows naturally, shaped by long-standing custom rather than immediate authority. You observe how the noble responds. There is no grand acknowledgement, no dramatic reaction. Perhaps a small glance, a barely noticeable shift of posture. It is enough. The exchange is complete in its simplicity. You continue walking, reflecting on what you have seen. The castle is not only built of stone and wood. It is built of relationships. Roles are defined, but they are not constantly explained. Each person understands their place through experience, through repetition, through quiet observation over time. A servant knows where to stand, where to move, how to act. A guard knows where to watch, when to remain still, when to walk. A noble knows when to observe, when to intervene, when to simply be present. There is a balance in this structure, not equality, but order. And within that order, a certain calm. You step into a wider chamber where a few individuals are gathered. The space is not as large as the main hall, but it carries a sense of importance. The walls are lined with simple decorations, perhaps woven fabric or carefully placed items that hold meaning beyond their appearance. Here, conversation takes place. It is quiet, measured, and purposeful. Two figures speak with one another, their voices low, their tone calm. A third listens, occasionally adding a few words. There is no interruption, no raised voices. Each person speaks when it is their moment, then allows the silence to return. You notice how even speech follows the rhythm of the castle. It is not rushed. It is not filled with excess. Each word seems to carry weight, chosen with care. You remain near the edge of the room, observing without entering the exchange. No one calls attention to your presence, yet you feel included in the space simply by being there. The conversation continues, unfolding slowly, then gradually comes to a natural pause. One of the figures rises, offering a small nod before leaving. The others remain for a moment longer, then follow in their own time. Nothing feels abrupt. Everything flows. As you step back into the corridor, you begin to notice how expectations shape behavior, even in the smallest ways. A servant carrying a heavy object moves carefully along the wall, keeping to the side. A guard pauses at a junction, allowing others to pass before continuing. A noble figure stands briefly at a window, observing the courtyard below, their stillness carrying a quiet authority. No one needs to explain these actions. They are simply known. You walk toward a staircase and begin to ascend slowly. The steps are worn, shaped by years of use, each one slightly uneven. As you climb, the sounds of the lower levels soften, replaced by a different kind of quiet. The upper areas of the castle feel more removed, more reflective. At the top, a narrow passage leads to a section of the castle where fewer people pass. Here, the air feels stiller, the movement slower. You pass a doorway that stands slightly open and glance inside. The room beyond is modest, yet more refined than others you have seen. The furnishings are simple but carefully arranged. A table, a chair, a chest. Everything placed with intention, not for display, but for use. This is likely a private space, belonging to someone of higher standing. You do not enter. Instead, you continue walking, respecting the boundary without needing to question it. The understanding comes naturally. Some spaces are shared, others are not. The distinction is quiet but clear. As you move along the upper walkway, you look down into the courtyard once more. From this height, the pattern of movement becomes more visible. Individuals crossing paths, completing tasks, returning, repeating. The rhythm you felt earlier is now easier to see, like a pattern woven across the entire space. Each person plays a part. Each role supports another. And above it all, the structure holds steady. You rest your hand lightly against the stone barrier, feeling its cool surface beneath your fingers. It has stood here for many years, witnessing countless days just like this one. The people within the castle may change over time, but the pattern remains. You begin to sense that the social structure of this place is not only about hierarchy, but about continuity. It ensures that the castle functions, that each day unfolds as expected, that nothing is left uncertain. There is comfort in that, even within its limitations. You take a slow breath, allowing the quiet understanding to settle. The castle is not chaotic. It is not unpredictable. It moves with a steady, reliable rhythm shaped by roles, expectations, and quiet agreements that do not need to be spoken. And as you stand there, observing the life below and around you, you begin to feel how that structure supports the calm you have experienced since waking. It holds everything in place, not tightly, but gently, allowing each moment to unfold within its boundaries. You turn and begin to walk again, carrying this awareness with you, knowing that the day will continue to reveal itself in the same quiet, steady way. As the day continues its quiet passage, the rhythm of the castle begins to soften once again. The steady movement of work does not stop, but it loosens slightly, creating small spaces between actions. These spaces are subtle, almost hidden, yet they allow moments of rest to appear naturally, without announcement or formality. You begin to notice these moments as you walk. A servant pauses briefly near a wall, setting down a tool for just a moment longer than necessary. A guard, still at his post, shifts his weight gently, allowing his body a small measure of ease while his watch continues. Even the sounds of the castle seem to settle into a quieter pattern, as if the structure itself is taking a slow breath. You follow a familiar corridor and find yourself drawn once more toward a quieter section of the castle. Here, the movement is less frequent. The air feels stiller. Light enters through narrow openings, falling softly across the stone floor in long, calm shapes. The brightness of midday has softened slightly, not fading, but becoming more even, less sharp. You step into a small chamber where no one is working at the moment. The space is simple, containing only a bench and a small window. Dust drifts slowly in the light, moving without direction, guided only by the faint currents of air. You sit down, feeling the firmness of the wood beneath you, and allow yourself to remain still. There is no task here, no expectation, only presence. For a while, you do nothing. You listen to the quiet sounds beyond the room, distant footsteps, a door closing softly, the faint murmur of voices far away. Each sound arrives gently, then fades, leaving the silence intact. This, you begin to understand, is part of the rhythm as well. Rest does not come as a separate event, but as a natural extension of activity. It appears in small intervals, woven into the fabric of the day rather than set apart from it. After some time, you rise and step back into the corridor. You follow the passage toward the courtyard again, moving slowly, without any particular destination. The castle no longer feels like a place to explore, but a place to move through calmly, allowing each moment to guide the next. Outside, the courtyard holds a different energy now. The work continues, but it has settled into a quieter pace. Movements are still purposeful, but less frequent. Some tasks have been completed. Others continue without urgency. The space feels balanced, as if it has reached a steady middle point in the day. Near the well, a figure sits on the edge, resting briefly. Their hands are still, their posture relaxed. They are not idle, but pausing, allowing a moment of stillness before continuing. After a short while, they stand again, lifting the bucket with quiet familiarity, returning to their task without hesitation. You walk along the edge of the courtyard, observing these small pauses. They are not marked or measured. They simply happen. Under a shaded section of the wall, two individuals sit together, speaking in low voices. Their conversation is calm, unhurried. There is no sign of urgency in their tone. They share a quiet exchange, perhaps about the day, perhaps about something else entirely. After a few moments, they fall silent, not out of discomfort, but because silence itself is enough. You notice how conversation here does not need to fill every space. It comes and goes naturally. You continue walking, passing beneath one of the archways that lead back into the interior. The transition from light to shadow is gentle, your eyes adjusting slowly as the brightness softens. Inside, the castle feels cooler, the air more still. You follow a staircase upward, your steps slow and steady. At the top, the narrow walkway opens along the inner wall of the castle. From here, you can see both the courtyard below and the distant land beyond the walls. The view is quiet, uninterrupted. Fields stretch outward in muted tones, their detail softened by distance. You rest your hands lightly against the stone edge. The surface is warm now, holding the heat of the day. It feels different from the cool stone of the morning, as if the castle itself has absorbed the passage of time. A guard stands further along the walkway, his presence steady as before. He does not move much, only shifting occasionally, maintaining his quiet watch. You sense that even his stillness is part of the rhythm, a constant point within the flow of movement below. You remain there for a while, looking outward. There is a calm in this view. Nothing moves quickly. Nothing demands attention. The land beyond the castle continues in its own slow way, just as life within the walls does. The two spaces exist side by side, connected yet separate. After some time, you step away and continue along the walkway. You pass another figure seated alone, perhaps taking a brief rest. They do not look up as you pass, but their presence is acknowledged in a quiet, shared awareness. No words are needed. You descend once more into the interior. The castle greets you with its familiar sounds, softer now, more spaced apart. The earlier activity has settled into a steady calm. Tasks continue, but with less intensity. The rhythm has reached a gentle plateau. You move through a passage where light and shadow alternate in soft patterns. Each step carries you forward without urgency. There is no need to hurry toward the next moment. You realize that leisure here is not defined by entertainment or distraction. It is defined by stillness, by small pauses, by the ability to sit, to observe, to exist without constant action. Even the simplest acts, standing by a window, sitting on a bench, watching the courtyard, become moments of quiet rest. You return once more to the large hall. Inside, the fire has settled into a steady, low burn. The room is quieter now, with fewer people present. A couple of individuals sit at one of the tables, their posture relaxed. One traces a pattern lightly across the wood with their finger, absent-mindedly. The other simply sits, looking toward the fire. No conversation passes between them, yet the silence feels complete. You take a seat at a nearby bench, allowing yourself to rest again. The warmth of the room surrounds you gently. The light flickers softly. The air feels calm, undisturbed. Time passes here without being measured. Moments blend into one another. There is no clear beginning or end, only continuation. As you sit there, you begin to feel how the castle allows for these quiet intervals, not as interruptions, but as part of its natural flow. Work, rest, movement, stillness, all exist together, balanced and unforced. You take a slow breath, and for a while, you simply remain. As the quiet stillness of the afternoon lingers, you begin to notice that beneath the calm rhythm of the castle, there are subtle reminders of the limits and challenges that shape life here. They do not appear suddenly or dramatically, but reveal themselves slowly in small details that are easy to overlook at first. You rise from the bench in the hall and step back into the corridor, where the air feels slightly cooler again. The light has shifted, no longer carrying the brightness of earlier hours. Instead, it has softened, stretching longer shadows along the stone floor. As you walk, you begin to notice how the castle, for all its strength, is not a place of comfort in the modern sense. The walls are thick and protective, but they hold the cold as easily as they hold the heat. In the morning, they felt cool beneath your touch. Now, as the day begins its slow movement toward evening, they seem to release that coolness again, gently reminding you of their unchanging nature. The floors remain hard, the seating simple. The air, though fresh, carries faint traces of smoke and dampness that never fully disappear. None of it is harsh, but none of it is softened. You pass a narrow window and pause briefly, looking out. The sky has begun to change, the pale blue deepening slightly, the light becoming more golden as it lowers. The land beyond the walls stretches quietly, but now you notice something you had not considered before: distance. The castle is strong, but it is also isolated. The world beyond is not easily reached. Travel would be slow, uncertain, shaped by terrain and time. The walls protect, but they also separate. Those within them live in a contained world, one that does not change quickly. You continue walking, your thoughts settling into a quieter awareness. Further along, you pass a storage room with its door slightly open. Inside, shelves hold supplies, food, materials, tools. Everything is arranged carefully, but the quantity is not excessive. It is measured, controlled, prepared with the understanding that resources must last. Nothing here is taken lightly. Each item has value. Each portion must be used wisely. You realize that the steady rhythm of life you've observed is not only a matter of habit, but of necessity. The calm pace is not chosen simply for comfort, but because it allows for sustainability. There is no room for waste, no space for careless excess. You move on, following the corridor toward a quieter section of the castle. Here, the sounds are fewer, the movement slower. A figure sits near a wall, mending a piece of fabric. Their hands move with careful precision, guiding the thread through worn material, restoring it piece by piece. The task is small, yet important. Nothing is discarded easily. Everything is repaired, reused, extended for as long as possible. You watch for a moment, noticing the patience required. There is no sign of frustration, only quiet focus. You continue walking, and as you do, you begin to feel the physical weight of the environment more clearly. The air, though calm, is not always light. The scent of smoke lingers. The stone holds the day's temperature unevenly. Some spaces are warmer, others cooler, depending on their position and use. Comfort is not consistent here. It shifts. It must be adapted to. You step into a narrower passage where the light is dimmer. The walls feel closer, the ceiling slightly lower. The air here is still, carrying the quiet scent of enclosed space. You move slowly, your footsteps echoing softly, aware of how the castle's design favors function over ease. It is built to endure, not to indulge. At the end of the passage, you emerge into a small open area along the inner wall, where a narrow path allows movement between sections. From here, you can see the outer edge of the castle more clearly. The stone rises high, solid and unbroken, a barrier against whatever lies beyond. You rest your hand against it again. It feels firm, unyielding, protective, but also confining. You realize that those who live here do not experience the castle as a temporary place, but as their entire world. Their days repeat within these walls, shaped by routine, by responsibility, by the limitations of what is available. There is safety in that, but also constraint. You turn and continue along the path, descending slowly back toward the central areas. As you move, you pass by a small group gathered quietly near a doorway. Their conversation is low, their expressions calm, but there is a subtle seriousness in their tone. You cannot hear the details, but you sense the presence of concern, perhaps about supplies, about weather, about something that must be managed carefully. Life here requires attention. It requires awareness of things that cannot be ignored. You walk on, allowing the moment to pass without interruption. Back in the courtyard, the light has shifted further. The shadows are longer now, stretching across the ground in soft lines. The activity has slowed even more, though it has not stopped. A few individuals continue their tasks, while others begin to gather small items, preparing for the transition into evening. The well stands quiet for a moment, the rope still, the bucket resting at its edge. The tools along the wall remain in place, some used, some waiting. The castle does not rush to finish the day. It allows it to settle. You stand quietly, taking in the scene. The calm you have felt throughout the day remains, but now it carries a deeper understanding. The rhythm of this place is steady, not because life is simple, but because it must be managed carefully. The quiet routines, the measured actions, the gentle pace, all of it supports a way of living that depends on balance. Nothing is guaranteed here. Each day must be carried forward with care. You take a slow breath, feeling the weight and stillness of the castle around you. It is not a place of ease, but it is a place of endurance, of continuity, of quiet persistence. As the light continues to soften and the day moves gently toward its close, you remain within this understanding, aware now not only of the calm, but of the reality beneath it, a life shaped by limits, guided by necessity, and carried forward one steady moment at a time. Section 10. As the day begins its slow descent into evening, the castle does not change suddenly, but gently, almost imperceptibly. The light softens further, turning from pale gold to a deeper, quieter hue. Shadows stretch longer across the courtyard, merging with one another, until the ground becomes a pattern of dim shapes and fading brightness. You remain still for a moment, watching. There is no clear signal that the day is ending, no bell, no announcement, only the quiet understanding that comes from the light itself, from the gradual slowing of movement. from the way the air begins to cool once more. You begin to walk, following the familiar paths you have come to know. The corridors feel different now, not because they have changed, but because the day within them has reached its later hours. The sounds are fewer, footsteps echo less often, doors open and close more quietly, as if even the actions of the castle are settling into rest. You pass by the hall once more. Inside, the fire burns low, its flame smaller but steady. A few figures remain, seated at the tables, their presence calm and unhurried. Some speak in low voices, while others simply sit, their attention drifting between the fire and their own quiet thoughts. The room feels warmer now, not just in temperature, but in atmosphere. There is a sense of completion. The tasks of the day have been carried out. The work has been done. What remains is simply the quiet continuation of time. You step inside briefly, feeling the warmth against your skin, then move on. Back in the corridor, the light from the windows has faded further, replaced in some places by the soft glow of torches. Their flames flicker gently, casting moving shadows along the stone walls. The light is uneven but comforting, guiding your path without urgency. You walk slowly, your steps soft against the floor. There is no destination now, only movement. You find your way once more toward the courtyard. Outside, the sky has deepened into a soft, dusky blue. The first faint hints of night begin to appear, though the world is not yet dark. The castle walls rise around you, their surfaces now touched by the last traces of daylight. The courtyard itself is quieter than it has been at any point during the day. Only a few figures remain. They move slowly, finishing small tasks, gathering items, ensuring that everything is in its place. Their movements are gentle, almost reflective, as if the day itself has encouraged them to slow down. The well stands still. The rope no longer moves. The bucket rests in silence. You walk across the open space, feeling the ground beneath your feet, now cooler than before. The air carries a slight chill, not uncomfortable, but noticeable. It signals the approach of night, the natural shift that follows every day without fail. You pause near the center of the courtyard and look upward. The sky stretches above, vast and quiet. A few early stars begin to appear, faint but steady. They do not shine brightly yet, but their presence is certain. They have been here every night long before this day, and will remain long after it has passed. You take a slow breath, and in that moment, you begin to feel the passage of time more clearly. Not as something that moves quickly, but as something that flows steadily. The day you have experienced does not stand apart from others. It is part of a long sequence, one that has repeated countless times within these walls. Each morning begins quietly. Each day unfolds with steady rhythm. Each evening settles into calm reflection. Nothing is rushed, nothing is lost. It simply continues. You begin to walk again, returning toward the interior. The castle greets you with its familiar stillness. The corridors, once filled with movement, now hold a quieter presence. The sounds are softer, spaced farther apart. A distant voice, a fading footstep, then silence once more. You pass by rooms where individuals prepare for rest. A figure folds a piece of cloth carefully before setting it aside. Another adjusts a small flame, ensuring it will last through the night. These actions are simple, yet they carry a sense of closure, as if each one gently marks the end of the day. You continue until you reach the room where you first awoke. The door stands as you left it, slightly open. You step inside. The space feels familiar now. The straw-filled bed, the small chest, the narrow window, now holding only the faintest trace of remaining light. Everything is unchanged, yet it carries the quiet weight of the day that has passed. You sit down slowly, feeling the firmness of the bed beneath you. The air is cooler here, the stone walls releasing the warmth they once held. The room is still undisturbed, waiting. You lie back gently, allowing your body to rest. Above you, the wooden beams remain steady, just as they were in the morning. The same structure, the same quiet strength. Nothing has changed, and yet everything has moved forward. You close your eyes, and as you do, the sounds of the castle fade even further. The distant movements become softer. The quiet deepens. You begin to reflect, not with active thought, but with a gentle awareness. Life here is simple, yet complete. It is shaped by routine, by necessity, by the steady passage of time. There are no sudden changes, no dramatic shifts, only the quiet repetition of days, each one flowing into the next. There is something peaceful in that, something grounding. To live within a rhythm that does not demand more than what can be given, to move with time rather than against it, to exist within a place where each moment is allowed to unfold naturally. The castle stands as it always has, strong, unchanging, enduring, and within it life continues, not loudly, not quickly, but steadily. As your breathing slows, you feel the calm of the day settling fully around you. The memory of each quiet moment, the soft light of morning, the steady work of the day, the gentle stillness of the afternoon, the fading light of evening, all of it blends into a single, continuous presence. There is no need to hold on to it, no need to remember every detail. It is enough that it happened, enough that you were part of it. The night deepens, the castle rests, and you drift gently into sleep once more, carried by the same quiet rhythm that has guided the entire day. Evening settles more fully into the castle, not as an event, but as a slow gathering of shadows. The last colour of the sky fades beyond the narrow window, leaving only a dim blue softness where daylight had once rested. The stone walls around you become less distinct, their rough surfaces blending gently into the quiet of the room. The world does not disappear. It simply grows softer. You remain still for a while, listening. The castle has not yet fallen completely silent. It is changing slowly, passing from the measured work of day into the deeper calm of night. Somewhere beyond your door, footsteps move along the corridor, slower than before. They do not hurry. They pass, fade, and leave the stillness behind them. A faint glow reaches the edge of the doorway. Torchlight. It trembles gently against the stone, moving in soft patterns that seem almost alive. The light does not fill the corridor as morning light did. It touches only what is near, leaving the rest in shadow. This makes the castle feel smaller and larger at once. Smaller because only nearby things can be seen. Larger because the darkness beyond them feels endless. You rise quietly and step toward the door. The room gives way to the corridor, and the air outside feels cooler. The stone beneath your feet has lost the warmth of the day. It holds the chill of evening now, steady and calm. You walk slowly, letting your eyes adjust to the low light. Every sound seems clearer in this hour. A distant murmur, the soft crackle of flame, the brushing of cloth as someone turns a corner ahead. The corridor leads you toward the hall. As you approach, The warmth becomes noticeable before the room appears. It reaches outward gently, carried by the hearth that still burns within. The smell of smoke is stronger now, mixed with the faint remains of food and wood and people gathered close to warmth. It is a lived-in scent, simple, grounded. Inside the hall, the day has narrowed into a quieter form. The long tables are no longer busy. Most have been cleared. A few cups remain placed neatly aside. The benches sit mostly empty, though several figures remain near the fire. They sit with shoulders relaxed, faces touched by flickering light, their voices low enough that the words are less important than the sound itself. You do not need to understand what they say. The tone is enough. It carries the softness of people who have finished their duties for the day and now belong to the quiet hour between labor and sleep. A servant sits near the edge of the hearth, hands resting in their lap. Another figure leans forward slightly, watching the flames move. A guard stands near the entrance, not rigid, but present, his attention softened by familiarity. The fire becomes the center of the room. Its flames rise and fold inward, bright for a moment, then dimmer. It gives light, warmth, and a point for tired eyes to rest upon. In a world without bright lamps and constant noise, flame has a different meaning. It gathers people. It marks safety. It keeps the night at a respectful distance. You take a place near the wall, sitting quietly on a bench worn smooth by use. The wood feels firm beneath you. The heat from the hearth reaches your face and hands, while your back remains touched by the cooler air behind you. This contrast feels natural here. Warmth is never everywhere at once. Comfort must be found in certain places, at certain times, and accepted gratefully when it comes. A figure near the fire speaks softly. Another answers. Then there is silence. No one rushes to fill it. The pause rests comfortably among them, as familiar as speech. It allows the crackle of the hearth to return, the shifting of wood, the quiet breath of those gathered around it. In this hour, silence is not emptiness. It is part of being together. You look toward the far end of the hall, where the shadows gather more deeply. The corners are barely visible. The walls rise into darkness above the reach of firelight. The ceiling beams, so clear in daylight, now appear as heavy shapes overhead. They seem to float in the dimness, holding the night above the room with silent strength. A servant moves through the hall with a small, careful task. They collect a cup, adjust a bench, check that nothing has been left where it should not be. The movements are quiet and practiced, the final touches of a day being put away. These small acts matter. They prepare the castle for rest. They make morning possible. You follow the movement with your eyes, feeling how evening brings a different kind of order. During the day, order was active. It moved through labor, watchfulness, preparation, and work. Now order becomes quieter. It becomes closing doors, banking fires, gathering tools, folding cloth, lowering voices. It becomes the gentle return of things to their places. The castle exhales, slowly, room by room. You rise after a while and leave the warmth of the hall, stepping once more into the corridor. The change is immediate. The air is cooler, the light weaker, the silence deeper. Behind you, the hall continues in its soft glow, but ahead, the passage stretches into shadow broken only by small pools of torchlight. You walk with care, not from fear, from respect for the hour. The castle at the evening asks for slower movement. It asks for softer steps. The stone corridors carry sound farther now. and even a small footfall seems to travel ahead of you. You become aware of your own presence, how every motion belongs to the space around it. You pass a doorway where someone has set a small flame inside. The room beyond is modest, half hidden in warm light. A figure sits there, bending over a simple task, perhaps folding fabric or arranging something for the next day. Their face is calm, lowered toward their work. The scene lasts only a moment as you pass, but it remains with you like a small painting held in memory. Further along, another door closes softly. A latch settles into place. The sound is gentle but final. It marks another room entering its own private night. You continue toward the courtyard. The archway ahead opens into darkness, touched by the last faint trace of sky. Outside, the air has cooled more sharply. The courtyard that had carried movement all day now lies mostly still. The well stands as a dark shape near the center, its rope hanging motionless. The tools have been gathered. The ground holds the memory of footsteps, but no longer the motion itself. Above, the sky is darker now. A few stars are clearer. They seem far away, untouched by the walls below. The castle rises around you, its stone surfaces now more shadow than form. The high walls that felt protective in daylight feel quieter now, heavier, as though they too have settled into rest. Along the upper walkway, a guard moves slowly. His shape passes behind the low glow of a torch, then disappears into darkness, then appears again. His watch continues. Even rest has guardians. You stand in the courtyard for a few moments, allowing the evening air to surround you. It carries the smell of damp stone, fading smoke, and distant earth. There is no wind, only a slight movement of coolness against your face. The open space feels peaceful, yet watchful. In the year 1200, night is not filled with artificial brightness. It arrives honestly. It changes the world. It asks people to gather close, to conserve warmth, to trust walls, fire, habit, and one another. Darkness is not only absence. It is a condition of life, something accepted and lived with, night after night. You turn back toward the interior. The torchlight inside seems warmer after the courtyard. You move through the archway and into the passage, where the stone walls hold the faint glow in uneven patches. The castle feels less like a place of many rooms now, and more like a chain of small islands of light. Each flame creates a little world. Each doorway holds its own quiet. As you walk, you hear the distant sound of low conversation again, softer than before. It may come from the hall, or from a chamber nearby. The voices rise slightly, then fall, then disappear. You imagine people speaking of ordinary things, weather, work, a small difficulty, a remembered moment. Nothing grand, nothing meant to last beyond the evening. And yet these small conversations are part of history too. Most of life is not recorded. Most lives pass through quiet rooms, around fires, beneath roofs, within routines. They leave few written words behind, but they happen. They mattered to those who lived them. Their warmth existed, even if only for a night. You continue slowly, carrying that thought with you. Eventually, you return toward the quieter passage near your room. The activity here has nearly ended. The torchlight is sparse. The shadows rest close along the walls. Somewhere behind a closed door, someone shifts on a bed or moves a wooden object into place. Then stillness returns. You reach your doorway and pause. The room inside is dim, almost entirely dark now. The narrow window holds only a faint suggestion of the night beyond. You step in, and the quiet closes gently around you. The space feels smaller than before, but not lonely. It feels sheltered. You sit on the edge of the bed. The straw within the mattress rustles softly beneath your weight. The sound is familiar now. So is the cool air, the rough linen, the steady presence of stone. The castle has become less strange, not comfortable in every way, but understandable. Its rhythms have entered your own breathing. Outside, the evening continues to deepen. The last movements of the day fade. One by one, the small sounds withdraw into silence. You lie back slowly, not yet asleep, simply resting. The darkness above you is gentle. The beams are no longer visible, but you know they are there. The walls are hidden, but they remain. The castle holds its shape in the dark, strong and patient, carrying everyone within it toward night. And the evening, at last, becomes quiet enough to feel like sleep approaching. Section 12. Night gathers more deeply around the castle, and the last boundary between evening and darkness becomes almost impossible to notice. It does not happen in one moment. It arrives slowly, quietly, until the narrow window no longer shows the shape of the outside world, only a soft blackness where the sky once held its fading blue. The room grows still, the air cools, the castle settles further into itself. You remain awake, but only gently. Sleep is near, yet not complete. Your thoughts drift without urgency, moving as slowly as smoke above a dying fire. The sounds beyond your room are fewer now. A footstep passes somewhere far away, then nothing. A door creaks softly, then closes. After that, silence returns with patient weight. You rise again, not because you must, but because the night itself seems to invite one final wandering. The corridor outside is dim. Torchlight trembles along the walls, weaker now than it seemed earlier, as if the flames have also grown tired. Their glow touches the stone in uneven patches, leaving long stretches of shadow between them. You move through these alternating spaces of light and dark, each step careful, each sound softened by the hour. The castle feels different at night. During the day, its rooms were connected by movement. Now they are connected by stillness. The corridors no longer feel like paths of activity, but quiet passages between resting places. Behind closed doors, people sleep or prepare to sleep. Their presence is sensed rather than seen. You pass one chamber where a low voice murmurs briefly. Another voice answers. Then quiet. Perhaps two servants speaking before rest. Perhaps someone checking on a final task. The words are too soft to understand, and it is better that way. They become part of the night's texture, like the faint hiss of a torch or the distant settling of wood. You continue toward the hall. The warmth reaches you before the room does, though it is gentler now. The hearth still glows, but the flames are lower, more subdued. When you step inside, you find the hall mostly empty. The long tables lie in shadow. The benches stand still. The firelight gathers near the hearth and fades before reaching the corners. Only a few figures remain. They sit close to the fire, speaking in tones so low that the conversation feels almost private even from a short distance. Their faces appear and disappear in the shifting glow, lined with fatigue and calm. No one sits upright with the energy of day. Shoulders rest, hands are still, eyes drift toward the embers. You take a seat farther away, remaining quiet. The fire is softer now. It no longer dances high, but breathes. Red embers glow beneath darkening wood, sending up small flames that appear briefly and vanish. The room seems to listen to them. Every crackle feels larger in the silence. Every small collapse of ash sounds like a quiet settling of time. One of the seated figures speaks. Their voice is low, slow, and almost without emphasis. It might be a memory. It might be a simple account of something that happened earlier. The others listen without interruption. This is not storytelling as performance. It is the gentle passing of words among tired people before sleep. A small laugh follows, not loud, barely more than breath. Then silence returns again. You feel how different conversation becomes at night. During the day, words guided tasks, answered needs, carried instruction. Now words soften. They become companionship. They ask less of the listener. They drift into the warmth, then disappear. The firelight moves across the stone. It reveals small details you had not noticed before. A mark on the table, a repaired edge of a bench, the curve of a cup left near the hearth. Ordinary things seem more thoughtful in this light, as if darkness has taken away everything unnecessary and left only the quiet essentials. A guard stands near the entrance to the hall. He does not speak. His shape is still partly lit by the hearth, partly hidden in shadow. He seems both present and distant, belonging to the night in a way the others do not. His duty continues while the castle rests. He watches not with alarm, but with patience. You wonder what it is like to know the castle by night as well as by day. To learn the sounds of settling beams, to distinguish ordinary silence from unusual silence, to understand which shadows are familiar. Such knowledge cannot be written easily. It comes from hours of standing still, from repetition, from trust in the senses. In this world, attention is a form of protection. A figure near the fire rises slowly. They take a small piece of wood and place it carefully near the embers, not to create a bright blaze, but to keep a steady warmth alive. The flame accepts it gradually. A thin line of smoke curls upward and disappears into the dimness above. The action is simple, yet it feels important. Through the night, fire must be managed. Too much flame wastes wood. Too little allows coal to enter. Balance is required even in darkness. Even sleep depends on quiet labor. The remaining conversation fades. One person stands, another follows. They exchange a few soft words, then leave the hall one by one. Their footsteps move into the corridor and grow faint. The guard remains. The fire remains. You remain for another moment, watching the embers pulse with slow red light. The hall now feels vast. Without voices, its size becomes more noticeable. The ceiling disappears into darkness. The tables stretch like long, sleeping shapes. The walls hold the firelight briefly, then give it back to shadow. You sense the age of the room more clearly now, as if night reveals what daylight overlooks. This place has held many evenings, many fires, many voices now forgotten. You rise quietly. The guard gives no sign beyond a slight awareness of your movement. You leave the hall and return to the corridor, where the coolness touches you again. The transition is gentle but clear. Warmth behind, darkness ahead. The castle offers both, and you move between them slowly. Along the passage, the torchlight has lowered. One flame bends slightly, then steadies. Another burns near a corner, casting a long shadow that shifts as you pass. Your own shadow moves beside you, lengthening and shortening across the stone. It feels like a companion that exists only in firelight. You hear something outside, not a human voice. Perhaps wind beginning to move along the outer wall. Perhaps an animal in distance. The sound is brief, then gone. The castle absorbs it. The walls remain steady. You find your way toward a small window in the corridor and pause beside it. The opening is narrow, and the outside is nearly black. Still, you can sense the courtyard below, even if you cannot see it clearly. The well, the walls, the empty ground, all of it resting under the night sky. Above, a few stars are visible through the slit of darkness, faint but certain. There is comfort in their distance. They belong to another scale of time. The people within the castle sleep beneath them, bound to tasks, seasons, hunger, warmth, and stone. The stars continue beyond all of it. Their quiet presence makes the concerns of the day feel smaller, not meaningless, but gently placed within something wider. You stand there for a long breath, then another. The corridor remains still. Eventually, you move on. You pass rooms now closed for the night. Behind one door, a faint cough. Behind another, the rustle of straw. Then stillness again. These small sounds do not disturb the peace. They deepen it. They remind you that rest is not perfect silence, but the soft presence of living people at ease. The castle is sleeping gradually, not all at once, room by room, breath by breath. You return to your chamber, where darkness waits like a familiar covering. The air is cool, but not severe. You close the door gently, leaving it slightly ajar, just enough for a thin line of torchlight to remain along the floor. It glows faintly, then flickers. You lie down again. The straw mattress shifts beneath you. The linen feels rough against your hands. The ceiling above is invisible, but its weight feels protective rather than heavy. You listen to the castle around you, to its small night sounds, to the far-off fire, to the silence between everything. Nothing asks to be done now. Nothing hurries forward. The night has taken the day into itself. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts loosen. The castle becomes less a place you observe and more a presence that holds you quietly. Stone, wood, fire, darkness, breath. All of it settles into one slow rhythm. And somewhere beyond the walls, beneath the patient stars, the year 1200 continues without needing to be counted.